Hola amores, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is another VBX Familia Speaks video. And before I get on with the video, I first wanted to say welcome to all of my new subbies. I have gained quite a few subscribers the past few weeks, so welcome. And for those of you that don't know, I do take video requests. So if you guys ever want to just hear my opinion on a certain subject or like a trending topic, you can email me or message me via any of my social media, which are in the description box below, and request videos. So that is what these VBX, which stands for Viva Bella Extina, VBX Familia Speaks videos are. So I recently had someone request that I do a video speaking on my experiences with colorism. So colorism isn't something I've really talked a whole lot about on my channel. I have made a video in the past about it. It was about combating colorism, what we can do to kind of help stop it. But you know, it's just one of those topics where some people like to hear about it and feel they can relate. Other people don't care to hear about it at all. So, you know, it is what it is. I know that I have a pretty diverse following. Like I have guys, I have girls, and I know it is usually girls to talk about this, but I also know that I have people of different backgrounds. You know, I have, Black people that listen to me, Hispanic people that listen to me. I don't know if I have any white people, but if I do, hey. But yeah, so it's just one of those things, Some people like to hear about it, some people don't. But sometimes I feel like when the topic of colorism comes up, there's a little bit of confusion as far as what it actually is. I feel like people will sometimes confuse it with racism, although, I mean, many times they do kind of go hand in hand. But when it comes to colorism, though, for the most part, from what I've seen, it's usually experienced or, demonstrated towards people of the same race. So that is the biggest difference between colorism and racism. It's usually done by people within your same racial or ethnic group. So I'm sure most of us do know what colorism is, but y'all know I like to give definitions. So the formal definition of colorism is a form of prejudice or discrimination based on skin color, usually from members of the same race, in which people are treated differently based on the social implications from cultural meanings attached to skin color. So certain skin tones will be associated with things such as beauty, wealth, desirability, and other skin tones will be associated with the opposites of all those things. So historically, and for the most part, what we see is that colorism usually manifests itself in the form of discrimination towards darker skin tones. And it's not just Black people that experience this or demonstrate this. I mean, you hear of this happening within Middle Eastern cultures. I've heard a story of like this happening to people in India. You hear about it in East Asian cultures. So this is kind of like a worldwide thing. And of course, what is perceived to be light or dark, that varies from culture to culture. Like when I've heard of like Asians talk about colorism and how they were considered dark by their family members, I might look at them and be like, you're definitely light skinned, like you're light, like how could you be considered dark? But again, it varies. Like me, I may be considered Black as hell to somebody from one culture, but to somebody where maybe they're used to being around people of darker skin tones, I might be considered borderline light skinned to somebody else. So it all varies. Also, when it comes to colorism, although it is usually displayed towards darker skinned people, something we don't always like to acknowledge or talk about is that sometimes lighter skinned people are on the receiving end of colorism. There are cases in which, if a lighter skinned person happens to be like in the minority and everybody else is darker skinned, they may get treated a certain way or they may get bullied because of the fact that they are lighter skinned. So that does also happen, or certain experiences that lighter skinned people may have may be invalidated or people may look at them like, oh, well, your experience still isn't as bad as somebody that is darker, so nobody's really going to pay attention to you. So these type of things happen too, although people don't really want to talk about it. So in reality, colorism can go either way. Now, as for my personal experiences, I can't really say that I've experienced colorism, like outright discrimination or prejudice, like negative in my face. Yeah, I haven't really had any experience like that. Or I haven't really had someone treat me negatively and like I knew it was because of my skin color. At least not that I can recall. So I don't have really a lot of examples that I could really give. Again, that wasn't something I really went through within my family or like with my friends or anything like that. But the things that I did experience or that I do still experience because of my skin tone is, for example, when I'll go to like the Latin supermarket around here, like to this day, I feel awkward sometimes going into them because I will be like the only black person, like dark person in there. And although I am Latina and everybody else in there are Latinos, they don't see me as Latino because it's basically a bunch of Salvadorians and Mexicans. And when people look at me, their first thought isn't, oh, she's Dominican. Like they see brown and they automatically think, oh, black, like African American or something. Or maybe they think I'm some type of African. I don't know. But they don't assume Latina right away. So, you know, I will sometimes get looked at kind of funny and I can feel the weird vibes. It's just like, okay, I speak Spanish too, you know? So that is one thing I'll sometimes experience. But the other thing though that I have experienced on multiple occasions, and I don't know if this falls within colorism necessarily. I'm not sure what this would be considered, but there have been times in the past where people have said things to me like, oh, pero tú eres una negra fina, you know, narifina. So basically saying like they're acknowledging that I'm black, but at the same time acknowledging, but your features are fine. Like you're an elegant black girl type of thing. It's kind of like when you hear people say, oh, they receive kind of like that backhanded compliment, oh, you're pretty for a black girl. I mean, not that they necessarily said those words to me, but it's kind of the vibe that I've gotten sometimes. And this is something I mentioned in my video that I did make before about colorism, that in my experience, although I am darker skinned, it's almost like I got a pass in certain situations because of my features. So maybe this is more featureism, which is something I've heard. There's so many like isms now. But yeah, because my features aren't necessarily what you would off the bat associate with like, you know, West African traits or features or whatever. Like, you know, I don't know, my facial features are on the thinner, slimmer, sleeker side, I guess. So because of that, I've always had people like point that out, always, especially when it comes to my nose, because I have a pointier nose. Like, I don't know, it goes back into certain, it's not just skin color, but certain features that are considered more desirable. You know, the more European looking features. So again, because of that, I would have people make those comments to me. So does that count as colorism? I don't know. It's like a mix of colorism slash featureism, but not like in a negative way, but more like, I don't know. Y'all get what I'm trying to say. Like almost like backhanded compliment. I don't know. But that's pretty much what I have experienced when it comes to skin tone. So again, I haven't really had that many negative experiences when it comes to, you know, being a darker. And that is something that I am grateful for because, you know, not everyone of my color or people that are darker are that fortunate. You know, people get treated certain ways and discriminated against, or they get, I don't know, people don't really consider them their preference because they're darker. And, you know, something I mentioned in my video where I talked about how to combat colorism, I spoke about the role of family and the role of men. Because in my opinion, I do feel that women are usually the biggest targets of colorism, whether it's from men or amongst ourselves. When you hear of this whole light skin versus dark skin battle between Black people, who do you usually see at the forefront of this? It's women. Because women are usually the ones that feel like the men of our own ethnic groups or our own race may not be looking for us or checking for us because, you know, we're darker. We may feel that they're looking for the lighter skinned ones. And also a lot of times I feel like these thoughts and feelings are perpetuated amongst our own families. Like I mentioned in the video, we give value to a person from the time they are born. We give babies value from the moment they come out. We look at their skin color, we look at their eye color, we look at their features, we look at their hair texture. It's like we're already giving value to this baby based on its features, and they just came out the womb, you know? So, you know, it starts with us, because this is one of those things where, like, if you're a Black person, granted, a lot of this colorism, light skin versus dark skin stuff, it began with slavery, and yes, white people have their hand in that, of course, but I feel like in this day and age, you can't blame white people for everything. When it comes to colorism, that is happening within your own race, within your own community, so it's up to you to change that narrative, you know? So it starts with us. That's all I can really say about that. But yeah, that was it for this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. If you have been on the receiving end of colorism, or I don't know, what are your thoughts as to how we can change that around? Because we can talk about it, but what are we going to do about it? You know, that's what really matters. How can we change this narrative around looking at certain skin tones as being more desirable or less desirable than another one? All right, guys, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And again, if you have any video suggestions, please feel free to let me know. You can either comment them, or if you want to remain anonymous, you can use the email in the description box, or you can DM me on Instagram, whatever. All right, guys, see you next time. Bye.